Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be. My name is Sheila, and I'm a recovered addict. Uh, I want to first start off by thanking God.
Something happened and you got muted. And
Can you hear me?
now I can.
What was the last part you heard?
You had introduced yourself.
Okay, Sheila, recovered addict, powerless over alcohol. And I want to thank God for my life today and for the process of recovery that's outlined in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, um, and for sponsorship. Uh, And I want to thank Jay for asking me yet again to come out and share my experience, strength, and hope with a whole new set of people. And I have to say this because I was sitting here looking at all these people log on, and I can't tell you, I'm a little over 24 years in recovery. And the first time Jay asked me to come out and share was at Gladstone's in the marina. And I can't forget that particular Saturday morning that I arrived there. I was looking at the people that were showing up for this meeting, and my mind instantly said, what in the hell do I, this little chocolate child from South LA, have to say to these people? Like, my mind convinced me I had nothing to share. And it was quite the contrary. Um, the book talks about we are people who normally would not mix. And I don't mean that in any other way except that we're probably people who would have not mixed, maybe seen each other crossing or passing or whatever. But here we are because of what? The book talks about there being a common problem. But what keeps us well, that might have brought us together, but what keeps us together is the common solution. And I'm eternally grateful for that solution, being guided to that solution. So, real brief, how I got here. Uh, for me, I smoked a whole, a little bit of crack a whole long time. I My story starts off with alcohol. At the age of 12, I decided to take a sip of spinata, and that spinata went down, and it did something to me that nothing else did, and I didn't know that there was some things going on way before drugs and alcohol ever hit the scene for me. Um, I had gone through I had some abandonment issues instilled in me, from my dad. So there was rejection going on. But I had, grew up in this household where it was my mother and my stepfather, and my stepfather, did the best he could, as did my mom, with what he could. And, I had this dad that was really huge in the movie industry. And he used that to his advantage. He would pop in and pop out of my life, but he would always promise that I'll be back, and he would never come back. And I'd sit on that curb. And back in my era, I might tell my age, you had to be in the house when your street lights came on, and not coming home, but in the house. And when my biological father would show up, and then he would all of a sudden want to leave, or say he had to leave, he would promise me that he would be back. And needless to say, he would never show back up. And I would sit on the curb, and my mom would holler out the window, baby, come on in the house. He's not coming back. No, he promised me he's going to come back. He's going to come back. And he never came back until days later, weeks later, months later, whatever the case may have been. But every time he came around, and I think about Bill's story when he said he felt heroic as he walked down, the streets, as this soldier. And I felt heroic as a child because of who my dad was in the movie industry. And when he would come, and all the kids would say, hey, such and such, they called him Uncle Eddie. And it would make me feel like I had arrived. Well, that's the same thing that Spinata did that first day that I took it. We converted garages into our hangout spots. And we had that one person in the neighborhood that would go by. Back then also too, you could write your own notes and act as though you were your parent, and you could get liquor from the store. And I got wind of that, and I would write my own note and get, I would go to the store and say it was for my mom, and they would send me home with the beer. But that pinata went down that day at 12 years old, and it quieted everything that I had no clue was going on inside. And I'll get back to that, but that's the second part of step one. But what I didn't know at the time, I knew one thing and one thing only, and that's that I had arrived. I no longer felt less than, because every time that it was time for everybody to go home and the street lights were on, everybody went home with their siblings. I would go home by myself. I didn't have siblings that grew up in my house. My father, on the other hand, had, I can't make this up. My dad had 29 kids, 12 girls and 16 boys. Yes. None of which he raised, none of which, we ended up meeting each other at some point, sometime. And everybody, they had the last name Smith. It's like, oh, is your dad Eddie? Anyway. So fast forward, my drinking career took off. And by the time I was 16, I would buy beer on the way to school. And well, before 16, I would buy beer on the way to school. And at nutrition, I would, pour my chocolate milk out and pour the beer in the chocolate milk container and drink the beer. And thus, it began. So at the age of 16, I'm now getting into clubs that you had to be 21 and over to get in. And yes, I had ways of finagling a driver's license back then, and because they were the paper kind here in LA. And I could alter them. I was good at altering them. And I would alter it and change the date, my name or whatever it was. And I got in clubs that you were supposed to be 21 and I was 16. And the club that I was going to didn't serve anything but champagne. So across the parking lot, there was a club that was called the Page Four, and they had 3 huge bars in there. And that's all it was a big, huge bar. And I went over there and I started off with Long Island iced teas. Then I went to Tanqueray sweet and sour. Then I went to Tanqueray without the sweet and sour. Then I went to Beefeaters with 7-Up. Then I went to Beefeaters without 7-Up. I went to 151 and Coke, 151 without the Coke. I had Zombie. I went to Zombies. That's like 5 different rums in one drink. And at 16, my mind's not telling me that I'm progressing in my drinking. My mind's telling me that I'm able to drink these adults up under the table. Like I would leave out of that club in an upright position to go back across the parking lot to go to the club and party and dance till 5 a.m. And these adults were walking sideways to their cars. And I was priding myself on that, the insanity. I never once could see the truth that something could possibly be wrong here, sweet love. You're only 16 years old and you're pounding alcohol away like it's the thing to do. But what happened was, and this is why I do not identify as an alcoholic, is because there's a couple of things in the book, one of which it talks about there are many situations which arise out of the phenomenon of craving that causes man to make the supreme sacrifice. Well, in my experience, I got tired of hangovers. I got tired of the hot boxes. I got tired of waking up spinning. I got tired of going to sleep spinning. I got tired of my mom saying, bite the snake that bit you. In other words, drink some more, whatever it was that got you feeling like this. And the thought of it would make me want to puke. And I could no longer do it. And I made up in my mind that I was no longer going to drink to get drunk. And I did. I never, ever drank to get drunk anymore. Did my drinking stop? No, but what happened was I got introduced to crack cocaine in 1983. And I went to that particular party this particular night, 1983, and I came up out of that party 2000, October the 30th of 2000. I was saved for 3 years. That's 17 years, but saved for 3 years because I am one that when I get loaded, when I smoke crack cocaine, I end up in matching handcuffs, matching bracelets, and I go to jail and prison. So, and it's solely because of the ideal that I need another one based on this allergy that I didn't know I had. When I take one, something sets off in my body, and it wasn't until I got here and got a sponsor. Finally, I was dibbling and dabbling and making all those that were in the scene. I would get the name brand sponsors when I first came around because I wanted you to see me working with somebody, but I wasn't really working with them. I just wanted to look like I was working with somebody to shut you guys up and get you off of me. Um, I I honestly wasn't done getting loaded, is the truth. And so I was in and out of treatment centers, 7 of them to be exact. I completed in 1984. I completed 5 months of the 6-month program and got put out because of a relationship, and that I got into because it was co-ed. Of course, why wouldn't I? I'm not there to stay sober. In my mind, crack was my problem, alcohol wasn't. That's what I went into. The book says there must be no lurking notion or reservation of any kind. And I had an ideal that I was going to still drink because remember, I was able to modify my drinking. So that wasn't my problem, but crack was. And that ideal took me back out. And that back out brought me to my knees. They talk about this program, they talk about this disease getting worse, never better. I discovered new levels of hell that I didn't know existed. I'm talking about every time I thought I hit a bottom, I would discover a trap door to a new level of hell that I didn't know existed. So I finally, this last time, I came to October the 30th. By this time, I'm married 1 year. And we got loaded together. And then that morning, October the 30th, I came to on the floor of a friend's room. And my husband, I looked at him and he, for the first time, didn't matter. I'm like, if I don't get somewhere and get somewhere now, when you talk, when in the doctor's opinion, when Dr. Yeltman, the client was talking about how it felt like the gates of hell had closed on him with a clang, the death that stretched out all around. Bill talked about quicksand and stretched out all around him. I felt death all around me. I just didn't know how it was going to come, but I was clear I was going to die. I was very clear that I was going to die. And I remember at some point in my using career that I welcomed it. I lost the will to care. It robs me of that. And I didn't keep my daughter. She's let me just throw her out there. She's 41 years old now. I'm doing the math. I'm 24 years sober. So she was part of my story. Like she endured my addiction to some degree. And I remember the facial expressions that she would have, when I say, I'll be right back. I'll be right back. And I meant it. I meant it with everything in me. I didn't know that I lost the power and couldn't get back, no matter how great the necessity or the wish, but I meant it. I remember, and she's going to know about this. So I smoked all night the night before, trying to overcome a craving beyond my mental control, right? And I had to take her to school that morning, and I had been up all night, and I drove her to school. I got her to the bus stop, and as I got to the bus stop, she got out of the car, and I turned around. This is a street where kids are going up and down the street because there's a school there, but she catches the bus to another school. The trash cans were out in the street that particular morning, and in 0.2 seconds flat, I had passed out behind the wheel. And when I woke up, I'm hitting the trash cans. Thank God it was the trash cans and not the kids. I'm talking about something that took complete control of me. Like, and all I could do when I woke, when I came awake after bum 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 bum, and I looked in the rearview mirror and I could see my daughter running to my car. And you would think that would be enough to stop me. No, no, it wasn't. That wasn't the end of my story in using. Now I really need one, is what my mind came up with. Phew, that could have been kids. The insane. The book talks about the sane ideal running parallel with the insane ideal. Like, I'm knowing that I could have just killed kids, and my mind is telling me getting one will fix it. Thank God you didn't hit the kids. And needless to say, I smoked some more. So and what at this point, I I would get one, what was called a Cisco. They had these drinks called Cisco, and I would get this Cisco um because when I just did cocaine, it give me the jitters, and in order to kind of curve that off, I would have to drink the Cisco. So in those bewitching hours, the 2 a.m. to 5 a.m., 6 a.m., when I'm out there, because I'm driven by this phenomenon of craving, I have to have one more, one more, one more. And I was a foot soldier. I covered a 6-block radius for 14 years. I know I've made it to New York and back a couple of times. Just getting what I needed to get, which was one more. So anyway, I my crack career took off, and it was in full blown. It was full blown, and I had lost all power, choice, and control at this point. And I I was doing in and out, doing the treatment dance, to either quiet my mom or whatever. But I remember, my mom watching my daughter, and I remember turning her garage into my living quarters. It became the norm. Not living in a house was normal for me anymore. Outside was normal for me. And I wasn't raised like that. My entire family of grandmothers, grandfathers, aunts, uncles, we covered a 2-block radius. You talking about a village that raised us children? It was really that. We had grandma and grandfather downstairs across the street. Aunt and uncle lived up from them, which was one of their daughters. We were just all related. And if you weren't related, if the adults in our neighborhood weren't actually blood relatives, they were addressed as aunt and uncle. We were raised like that. But anyway, what happened is I smoked. I came to October the 30th, and I knew that if something didn't happen, I was a dead woman. I just didn't know how it was coming, but I was clear it was coming. And so I went, and at this time, the best thing I could come up with was one of those disposable cameras that had the little light bulb on the top. We would go in to a store and steal one camera to try and get more, drugs, whatever. And it was horrible. It was horrible. Because now I'm with him. It's not just me. It's me and my husband, and we're out there. But at this point that day, I looked at him and I said nothing. I just started walking. And my prayer to God, if he never ever heard me before, he felt it in my heart this time. I said, please don't let me know, because it seemed like every time I said, I'm done, I'm done, I'm done. Hey, you got a pipe? The knock came on the door, and all those I'm done's went out the window that quick. I remember a knock coming the door, and I was cooking breakfast for my daughter and I. I had some fried potatoes going, and we were gonna have us a good old breakfast. And the knock came at the door, and that whole skillet of fried potatoes went to the back burner. And my daughter didn't eat, and neither did I, because eating was irrelevant at that point. Just hindsight, I just, I'm so grateful to this program. I'm so grateful to the God that I've tapped into. So anyway, I get to a friend's place of business, and I said, please don't ask any questions. He had this multi-million dollar custom cabinet business, and he liked to ask questions. And I'm like, don't ask me any questions. I just need you to drop me off somewhere. Take me somewhere now. And so by this time, my husband had turned around and caught up with me. And I gotta say, from that day to this day, we haven't looked back. That was October the 30th of 2000. Um, I got dropped off at one facility, and we tried to go into the same facility. They discovered we were married. They said, oh, no, 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 no. So they sent him to another facility, and I was at this one. And I didn't stay there. But what happened is I ended up going to a drop-in center, detox downtown, and I stayed there 9 days. I was completely at this. Oh, let me back up real quick. So in 1994, I got my first certification as a drug and alcohol counselor. 1998, I was working in treatment. And I was a counselor by day. And I had the idea that, oh, now I'm going to really stay sober because I'm a counselor. And I would clock out at 4 o'clock, and at 4:15, I'm blowing smoke out. And then I'd get back up the next day and go to work and hold these phenomenal groups that the clients would say, Miss Smith, at the time, I wasn't married yet. Miss Smith, your groups are like, oh my God, we just get so much from them. And I'm like, yeah, I couldn't wait till 4 o'clock to clock out. And at 4:15, I'm blowing smoke out until finally my husband, who got caught, we worked for the same company, but at different places, he got caught. So he called and told on me. And thank God he did. I was angry at the time, but thank God he did. And so they gave me an option of bringing 90 days back, and they would hire me back. And I did that. And I've been back ever since. So moving forward, this time, instead of getting the sponsor, because I think you need to see me with this person or that person or this person, this time, without my permission, my hand went out to a woman and said, please help me. I had no ideals. Every time I came in, I had an idea. If I just get the right job, if I just get the right him, if I just get all those outside things that your mind gravitates to, that's going to make it work this time. I smoked those ideals up, and I drank them up. And so this time I was out of all ideals. I had nothing to say except, without my permission, which I know now, God, he did for me what I couldn't do for myself. And reluctantly, I asked this woman, please help me. And she said yes. And so she gave me some directions. She put me and what we found out later on is that not only did God put me in her life for her to take me through this work, I was strategically placed in her life. She was 4 years around here in postpartum blues with no sponsee. And so we ended up, God used us to save each other's life. Like really, like, she's finally working with someone, and I have a sponsor that, is calling me on my BS, because I'm not the one, if there's a loophole, I'm going to find it. I'm going to jump through it. I'm going to find an easier, softer way to do this. That's just that was my makeup. And there was no easier, softer way. The steps as they are designed was the only way. And for the first time, I was willing to follow someone else's directions other than Sheila's. And so what happened was, she put me in this prayer for 2 weeks, and I said that prayer, but I said it unlike any other time. I said it with the desperation of drowning men. I said it with a needingness of this to happen. I said it, I internalized, I dissected everything I was saying in that prayer, and I needed for it to happen. Something better happen, because I'm a dead woman walking. And so sure enough, I made it through those 2 weeks in this prayer, and then we sat down and began to go through the big book. And I gotta tell you, for the first time, even the preferences, I got so much out of the preferences and the forwards. Like there was mass information that came forth from just that reading. But when we got into the doctor's opinion, I was instructed to turn questions and statements into questions for myself, internalized, because I needed to know what my truth was. I really needed to know what I remember, because I had ideas and I thought so. When it asked me, am I of the type of am I of the hopeless variety? And I need to know what that was. And for me, it's the one that wanted to stay, stop, but couldn't, the one that didn't want to start, but did. And I fell so graciously into that category. How many times did I not want to get loaded, and I did? How many times did I start and couldn't control the amount and couldn't stop when I wanted to, right? And then it went on down to ask me, or make a statement, am I of the type with whom other methods fail completely? And yes, every idea I came up with failed me utterly. No matter what I tried to do to stay sober on my own, it did not work. It did not work. Nothing I came up with worked. I would crash and burn even harder is what really happened. It got worse. Like they say, this is a progressive illness over any considerable period. It gets worse, never better. And it did. It got worse. But when it talked about the doctor's theory that I have an allergy, and it being broke down to me, and that's why I love the fact that it's a textbook. I love the fact that there's we in there, not just me. It's not no one person's story. We doctors, like they collectively came together, and as did the first 100. With their combined experience and knowledge, man, it made a book that was written in 1939 come alive to one that was born in 61. Come on, there's something to this, right? I began to see me come alive out of those pages. I was able to identify things that, once it was broke down in layman terms for me, it made it make sense. It made me understand how and why I would leave a 6-month-old daughter in a house in an automatic swing that would swing the baby, while my ideal that came up, just run across the street and get one and come right back. My mind, it painted that picture. You're gonna just get it and come right back. Well, I because I worship my mind. I follow what I tell me, and I did that. And then it said, well, take a quick one while you're here, and I couldn't get back. I couldn't get back. Now my mind flipped the switch on me. It's cussing me out. It's ripping me a new one. Like, how dare you, you sad piece of crap of a mother. You have a 6-month-old daughter over there, and you're over here, and I don't, all I know is that there was a separation in body and mind. Like, my mind's telling me, get your butt back over there with your daughter, and my body's saying, put one more in. And until it being this allergy, this phenomenon of craving, as it eloquently describes it, this unexplainable craving for more unleashed me of its grip. Then and only then could I get back to that baby that had been there for hours. And when I got there, she had tear tracks where she had cried herself to sleep. That wasn't enough to stop me. But I now understand, when that happened, it didn't stop me. I just said I'll manage better next time. But now I'm understanding, hey, this is something beyond what I could have done on my own anyway. I got to see that I had developed this allergy. I had acquired this allergy of the body that manifests itself in a breakout of one more, and I don't stop until it unleashes me. So it get, and I love some of the things that pop out, like the grave nature of this is deadly. It's deadly, Sheila. You playing with something that's so deadly, and I'm not playing. I just couldn't stop. I didn't know what I was up against until I began to embark upon this journey. And so I got to clearly see that, yes, I have developed this allergy of the body. Yes, that when I put one end. Now, let me back up. So alcohol, if I remember going to a club and I started drinking and I never made it inside the club. We put the alcohol down and we went, and it was 3 days later that we emerged out of friends' rooms from smoking crack. Had that been crack started, it wouldn't have happened like that. I don't stop. I can't stop. Um, I'm not gonna put it down. Matter of fact, it's clenched in my hand. It goes everywhere I go, like, right? So I got to really understand the grave nature of this disease. I got to see the first half of step one in its devastating entirety. I understood that I had a physical allergy. Then when it went on to tell me that this would be academic and pointless, a girlfriend, if you don't put one in, what would be academic and pointless? You'll never experience the phenomenon of craving. Just don't put one in. But what, hey, oh, explain. I make me understand how I do that, because all I do is keep putting one in. So I'm not one to ever say I'm from the no matter what club, because no matter what, I got loaded. Um, Today, by the grace and loving of a merciful God, I haven't taken one through all of the life storms in these past 24 plus years that I've encountered some 10.5s and some tsunamis in my life. But thank God for the solution, right? So I went on to look at the mental part. I was clear about the physical part. And I went to look onto went on to look at this middle part of my disease in step one. And I got to see that how many times I had said I was done, and yet to no avail, right? It said there'll come a time where you'll have no mental defense against the first one. Well, how many times did I start without me even knowing I was starting? The only time, I remember going to treatment and say, play the tape back. Remember that first time? Well, I have a tape that plays only the good part back. It doesn't play what happens after I blow the smoke out. And the devastation, the incomprehensible, demoralizing things that take place after I blow that smoke out. Like, it's horrible. I become a whole different entity. And I'm just going to throw this one in there. I had a mother who had purchased a 38 special with hollow point bullets, and at this point, for fear of her life, she said she took an oath to God that she would take me out before I took her out, because that's who I become under the lash of crack cocaine, a monster, a Dr. Jekyll and a Mr. Hyde. And so I got to see how my mind, even when it would paint the picture of what was going to happen, that I'm going to break out in handcuffs because I sell to the police. If it's going, and my mind says, oh, they're scandalous anyway. There's a whole bunch of them at Rampart. I don't know if you remember about the big Rampart thing, but the police were under scrutiny because they're going on at Rampart Division. And I said, oh, one of them are from Rampart. They just off the clock and they want one. My mind sold me the idea that, they're human too. So sell it to them. And I knew they were police. I would look at the shoes. I would look at the stands. I know how police stand because when I go to jail, I work in receiving. So I watch all the undercovers come in, bringing the girls in, and I take mental pictures of what they look like so I can remember when I go back out to watch out for them, right? Good luck with that. But that's what I did. The insanity of thinking that, I'm going to get a handle on this. I'm going to be one step above them, one step in front of them. And that was not the case. So as I got to look at this middle part, step two talks about, can't you believe that a power greater than me can restore me to sanity? Well, first of all, if I'm going to be restored to sanity, that means that I have to be insane at some point, right? Me? Insane? How dare you? But we talk about the John Wasey's, the Wayne Casey's, the what's his name? All the legally insane guys, that were eating people, and they were on paper legally insane, and they had the sense to hide from the police, right? But here I am with this fine-tuned state of mind that I have. I don't, one, think I'm insane. Two, I love National Geographics. I love watching that today. I have the privilege of a home and I watch National Geographics because I just love, but I love to see the wildebeest out in the wilderness, just in their habitat. And then when the lioness is time to feed and they begin to set up perimeter, cover perimeter because, it's time to feed and they're going to go in and get their feeding, right? And one wildebeest will sense danger and take out running, and half the whole, if not the whole herd, they take out running afterwards because whatever, they sense danger and they're running for their lives. The first God-given instinct is what? The instinct for survival. But me as this addict that thinks she knows it all, I run to danger. I walk to danger over and over and over again. And I know that I put my life on the line as a result of putting one in. All bets are off. I do anything and everything to get the next one. I'm driving under the influence. I'm putting not only my life, but other people's lives that I come across. I'm putting their lives in danger. And here I am thinking that I'm the most sane thing on, right? So I get to see that this mind that I have, it really explains it, that the consequences of even taking the first one don't come into my mind to deter me from doing it. And if it does, because it has. And the last time, Sheila, you ended up in jail or you ended up da 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 da. It will tell me that. But it's the moment it tells me that, it's readily supplanted with, but I'm gonna do it like this time. So I'm gonna be careful. I'm not gonna mess with them over there. I'm just gonna do it by myself. It's always readily supplanted with this threadbare ideal that this time I'm gonna control and enjoy it. Because that's all I obsess on, is the ideal of controlling and enjoying it. And that's the lie. The obsession to the lie that this time I will do it right. I will make it. And I will die in the lie and I was living the truth. So it wasn't until I finally seen my truth that, Sheila, you're going to take another one. If something doesn't happen, if you're going to take another one, this is your experience. And I just shared the many times I went back, even when I got separated. And that's the most insane thing for me. We talk about insanity, doing the same thing, looking for different results. How about doing the same thing, knowing what the result is going to be? How about that? That's pretty insane. I would think. Like, I know I'm getting ready to go homeless because that's what I do. I don't stay in the house. I know I'm going to end up going back to jail, and I do it anyway because my mind comes up with this illusion, this delusion, the lie that I'm just going to do one. And then what happens? It paints a picture, which is the illusion. It paints a picture. My mind that came up with the lie creates a picture to the lie of how it's going to be different this time. And I don't have the power not to buy the lie. It sells me a lie. It comes up with the lie. It creates the lie. It sells me the lie, and I buy the lie over and over and over again because I don't have the power not to. I do not have the power not to. And I didn't know that. I just never understood why I kept doing what I kept doing. And so this book helped me to understand. Thank God for the studying, and I look at Carl Jung when he was working with the guy, and he said, "Oh yeah, now I got it. Self-knowledge to fix it. I understand it. I'm not gonna get loaded no more." Yeah, well, that wasn't my story. Knowing, I told you I smoked as a counselor. I had all the information. I've been in and out the rooms. I had enough information to be just deadly to myself. Really, I did. So when I got to see this obsession, this middle portion of this disease that I suffer from, because it's a twofold disease coupled with a third part, which is that unmanageability that I arrived here with, the restlessness, the irritability, and the discontentment that, we talk about conditions, causes and conditions. I flip it and I say conditions and causes. What condition am I in sober that causes me to go back to that which had just all but ripped my life. It talks about turning in flight like a boomerang and all but cutting me to ribbons. And so what condition am I in? Why do you do that? Like, I had family members asking, what is wrong with you? And I had no answer. I had no answer. I didn't know until I got here and began to have this book broke down to me word for word, line by line, page by page, and brought to life. It jumped out in my life, and I could see it for the first time, and it made it make sense. So now I understand the physical allergy. Now I understand this mental obsession, this mind. So these two portions of my mind got one objective, and that's to kill me dead. And what its job is to get me back to the first one. That's it. That's all. Once it gets me to the first one, the body say, I got her now. Like, don't worry about her. I got her now. And I think of old Seymour on Little Shop of Horrors. Feed me. I just big old gape this thing talking about feed me, because it had to have one, and I had to do what it took to get him another one. He was serious about putting another one in, and he used me to make sure that I got it in there. And so, but it was also enlightening to see how my body and mind did a separation. Any other time that doesn't happen, like at all. Like, the mind is the command center. So any signals through my body comes from the signal, the main. You're a nurse. I know there's about the pituitary gland. That's the command post, and nothing happens without that signal being sent. But what happens when this happens? Like, my mind no longer minds my body, and my body no longer minds my mind. Um, and now it makes sense why the doctor said, "Sorry, ain't nothing. What we have to offer, it ain't gonna hurt. It ain't gonna help y'all. I'm sorry, we can't help y'all." And that was heartening when I read that, and the doctors like scratching their head, like, this is some stuff I'm very unfamiliar with. We done studied this group of people, we done studied this group of people, and this group of people with some approaches, they get it. This group of people over here, talking about the real one, that's the category I fall in. I'm the real one. No matter what they did, nothing worked. Got you.
5 minutes.
So got you. So thank God for the sponsorship and breaking it down, and also my willingness to have the truth pulled out of me, because I don't know, the book talk about we can't differentiate the truth from the false. Our addict life seems the only normal one, right? So the truth became a lie, and the lie became the truth to me. And that it became the norm. So I got to see that in my sober state, I'm steadily trying to fill this gaping hole with outside stuff. Drugs and alcohol was not my problem. So when I got sober and was wondering why I was irritable, restless, cussing people out, not speaking to people, just being just ornery, it's because I'm restless, irritable, discontent, and I didn't know that needed to be addressed. And the way in which it was addressed, after seeing on page 18, an illness of this sort, we come regard as an illness, engulfs those about us that, it just eloquently lays it all out. Then page 52, the bedevilments. I'm full of fear, feeling like I'm not useful to nobody. That was before and after using drugs. Like, I didn't feel like I was enough. It painted my picture, man. It helped me to really see who I was versus who I wasn't. And so with that being said, there was nothing, I was clear there was nothing I could do about it. And it launched me because I was clear I was going to get loaded again. It launched me into this ideal that I thought I had this relationship with this God, to a new ideal of God. And thank God for the lay aside or set aside prayer that had me to have an open mind and a new experience, because I was impressed upon a God ideal as a child. And that was all I knew. And so when I arrived here, I realized I'm a walking world of ideals. The teachers impressed their ideals, the preachers impressed their ideals, the family impressed their ideals, my mom impressed her ideals, my dad impressed it. Everybody's ideals were impressed upon Sheila. And I arrived here with no idea of my own. And most of all, lacking the God ideal. Lacking the God ideal. This process helped me to even become willing. And it says that just be willing to be willing to believe in a power greater than myself. And that's where I arrived. It talks about, owning some of the same doubts and prejudices, because I did. I was willing to lay aside the prejudices, but I still had my doubts. And I was able to arrive at this point with some doubts, but I was able to create this conception of God that I needed him to be to me and for me. And from there, it took off. I took that third step and I was able to, begin to incorporate what by allowing what I said I need God to be to me to be it, because I'll move him over out of the driver's seat in a heartbeat if it ain't going the way I think it should. I'm quick to take the driver's wheel, but this time it didn't happen like that. I was willing to be willing, and something happened in the transition. And so I want to say that in 2013, my mom met. So May 15th is my mother's birthday. May 22nd, 2013, she took her last breath right here in my arm. I was able to give her 14 years of living amends in her life and be there from day one that she took sick to the last breath she took in my arm when I told her that, Mom, if you need to let go, because she was fighting bone cancer and liver cancer. And she wasn't fighting, she gave up. She was just in front of me because she didn't want to let go until she felt that my daughter and I at the time were okay. And I had a sponsor that said, I'm gonna say this and be quiet. One of her mantras, every person that I've worked with, I've always taken something as a mantra that they always said. And hers at this time that I was with during my mom's transition, hers was timing is everything. You guys, a lot of you probably may know her, Kimberly, from West Side. She said, timing is everything. Timing is everything. And this particular morning, May 13, 2013, May 22nd, 2013, a voice as clear as mine is right now to you said, now. And I walked through, I was coming from the bathroom having just cleaned her up, but I heard the death rattles, and they have this book called Gone Too Soon. When you're in hospice, they give you this book. And it was step by step of what to expect as her transitioning took place. And I got you. And it allowed me to lift her up, put her in my arm, and say, Mom, if you need to let go, you can let go. We'll be okay. And she said, and she was gone. That's all she wanted to hear. But she got to witness her daughter return to her daughter. She got to witness recovery displayed in my life. I got to live God out loud. And for that, I'm eternally grateful. Now I get to be the one for my daughter, for my son. Now I have twin grandsons, and I have another one on the way. I don't know if I said anything that made any sense. I just know that I'm always readily available to share what my story is to the next sick and suffering addict or alcoholic, whether you're recovering, or just getting here. My name is Sheila. I'm a recovered addict. Thank you for being here.
Yay. Oh my God.